What is going on, guys? My name is Stuber, and I'm here to break down this 5-game NBA slate on Draftkings and PrizePicks.com. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you guys are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. That is the #1 way of supporting me. And let's also run up the likes to as many as we can possibly get. And if you guys have any questions at all, make sure to drop them down below. I'll try to get to as many of them as I possibly can throughout the day. If you guys have any other questions, make sure to join my Discord. That is completely free, linked down below. We had a massive night on PrizePicks yesterday. If you guys stick throughout the entire video, I'll drop my favorite plays every couple minutes, every time we get to a certain team that I like one of their PrizePicks projections on. So make sure to watch all the way through. If you guys want to know exactly what I'm doing on DraftKings, FanDuel, and PrizePicks.com, make sure to join my Patreon. That is linked down below. Only $25 for the rest of the month. I think it's a pretty damn good deal. But yeah, let's just jump right into the slate. So if you guys, my transition didn't work. If you guys are part of my Patreon group or watched yesterday's video, we were all over the projections of Clint Capella, Al Horford, OG Anunoby. We mixed and matched all these guys over here. Ended up plus $1,000 on the day yesterday on PrizePicks amongst the Patreon plays. So if you guys want to take a look at what we're doing over on Patreon, that is linked in the description below. But we will start off with the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Detroit Pistons at 206.5 over under. 76ers are currently 5.5 point favorites. The Sixers are going to be without Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Grant Riller, and Danny Green, much like we saw yesterday. Today is the second leg of a back-to-back. Joel Embiid really just burned this same Detroit Pistons team for 30 points and 18 rebounds about a week ago. And we talked about it a ton yesterday. The volatility in what Joel Embiid was yesterday didn't really end up panning out. Didn't necessarily kill you, given that he was pretty affordable for what the upside you were getting. Go back to the beginning of last year with no Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, averaged over 2 fantasy points per minute. Now last game, this year so far, it looks like he is kind of dealing with that injury. Doesn't really look the same, but he still did garner a 34% usage rating last game. Just his shots were not falling. Now this is a very good matchup against an undersized Detroit Pistons front court. I could see him going to work on this team, and with this only being a 5-game slate, Joel Embiid continues to be one of my favorite spin-up options on the entire slate. Shake Milton last game was off a minutes restriction, but he's not in full game shape just quite yet. But the positive thing is that he played 8 minutes next to Tyrese Maxey, and that was my concern. I didn't know how much they were going to play next to each other, but now that they are so thin without Danny Green, Tobias, Ben Simmons, they kind of have to play these guys next to each other at points in the games. So Shake Milton at $3,900 I think is a pretty strong play. Tyrese Maxey played mid-30s minutes last time out at $5,500. I don't mind him. And the Furkan Korkmaz should continue to get the start, but the last 2 games since Korkmaz has been entered the starting lineup in the absence of Tobias Harris, Georges Niang was the one who ends up closing the game out at $4,400. That could be due to how well he has been shooting. If he's not shooting as well, maybe they close with Korkmaz. I slightly prefer Korkmaz just because I know that he's going to grab the start and is going to play at least mid-20s minutes and be pretty active while he is out there. Matisse Thybulle played pretty massive minutes last time out, but not very good fantasy producer at all. I mean, he's played 38 minutes and put up 25.5 fantasy points. That's well under a fantasy point per minute, and that was with him getting 2 blocks and 3 steals. But that's kind of Matisse Thybulle's thing. Much more valuable over on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. The Detroit Pistons are going to be without Chris Smith today. Cade Cunningham saw his minutes rise to 29 minutes last game. He would have ended up playing more, but the game ended up blowing out. He has shot a combined 3 for 22 through the first 2 games, but the volume is there for sure. A 22.9% usage rating game 1, a 24.1% usage game 2. At $4,000, you're really not going to find that kind of volume. He's probably going to be chalk again. I don't hate it. You could definitely get away from it in tournaments, but if you're playing one lineup in cash games, you probably just go ahead and play Cade Cunningham because he's going to play 30 plus minutes, assuming this game stays competitive. And, he's going to shoot. The shot's going to fall eventually. He was the first overall pick for a reason. I don't mind Cade Cunningham, but just to note, he's not the true point guard on this team. We saw it in preseason. Killian Hayes is the guy that's handling the ball, bringing it up the court. Cade Cunningham, really not that kind of guy, at least at this point in his career. And the Kelly Olynyk, we saw his price drop to $5,100. If the games did not blow out the last 2 games, I believe that he would have continued to close out these games where he's playing almost the entirety of the fourth quarter. I think we probably return to that. This is a good matchup for him where he can really spread Joel Embiid thin. And, it works a lot better for the Pistons to have Kelly Olynyk out there at the 5 rather than Isaiah Stewart, especially when we're getting to the end of the game. I think we return to seeing him play like 26, 28, maybe 30 minutes in this game. He has averaged 1.14 fantasy points per minute so far this game, or so far this year. So I do like the over on Kelly Olynyk, 24.5 fantasy points. The board is not as strong as it was yesterday, since there's only 5 games rather than 11 games. But yeah, from that Detroit team, really just focusing in on Kelly Olynyk and Cade Cunningham. Move over to the Utah Jazz versus the Atlanta Hawks at 220.5 over-under. Jazz are currently 1.5 point favorites. The Jazz are going to be without Rudy Gay, Donovan Mitchell, and Royce O'Neal are both questionable. Rudy Gobert has an out tag, but that is incorrect. Don't know why. They messed up. Rudy Gobert is completely fine in health-wise. And then Donovan Mitchell injured his right ankle last game. He ended up playing through it, played very well, looked fine. I'm expecting him to play in this game. I'm expecting Royce O'Neal to play as well. I don't mind Donovan Mitchell. Better play on FanDuel where he's much more affordable. Not really getting to him at $9,400. And then Bojan Bogdanovic rather at $5,000. I think is more of a secondary play, but I'm not really considering all that much on the Utah Jazz team since they are relatively healthy. The Hawks are going to be without Onyeka Okongwu, but outside of that, they are pretty much at full strength right now. Nate McMillan before the year, or a couple days ago, had mentioned that he wants to rest some of the players on this team during this long stretch. So we could see a couple guys end up resting here, maybe older guys like Lou Williams or Danilo Gallinari. So we have to be on the watch out for that. And then Clint Capella showed again that he's off of that minutes restriction. Played 33 minutes last time, played 34 minutes the game before, and he was on pace to play 34 minutes in the previous couple games. So he's only $7,200 still. Since the beginning of last year, he averages 1.2 fantasy points per minute. So I love Clint Capella here again. I know the matchup is tough against Rudy Gobert, but he doesn't really need to be that good offensively to pay off his price tag, because we saw it just yesterday. He only put up 13 real points and put up 38 fantasy points. So that's kind of the game that Clint Capella plays, and I like his over yet again. He helped us cash out big time yesterday on Price Picks. And I'm going to go back to the well with him. I mean, it's just point blank pretty simple. I mean, he's going to play 33, 34 minutes. He's a well over a fantasy point per minute player. And this game is projected to be close. So the over seems pretty easy for him to hit. So I'm going to take Kelly Olynyk over 24.5 fantasy points and Clint Capella over 31 fantasy points. Now, these lines will move significantly. If you guys watched the live stream when we went over the plays that we took earlier, they moved a full like 3-4 points. Clint Capella didn't move, but the other guys ended up moving pretty significantly, like OG Anunoby. They still cleared those fantasy spreads, but if you watch my videos and get in on these early before the lines start moving, you're going to find yourself with a ton of value. And if you guys do want a 100% match bonus up to $100, use code Taylor, TAYLOR, when signing up depositing. You'll get it, like I said, 100% match bonus up to $100. Extra cash to play with. Make sure to take advantage of that. Place that bet right there. And I actually don't mind the over on Cade Cunningham as well. But yeah, I'm really just focusing on Clint Capella over here. I think Bojan Bogdanovic, again, at $5,400 is probably a bit too cheap. Move over to the Boston Celtics versus the Miami Heat, a 214.5 over-under. Heat are currently 6-point favorites. The Celtics have no injuries right now, but this is the second leg of a back-to-back. We already saw Al Horford sit on the second leg of a back-to-back earlier this year, and we were already received word that that was what the case was going to be. So throughout the regular season, so I'm expecting Al Horford to sit in this game. Really wish Robert Williams was over on Price Picks, because they have Al Horford up, but they don't have Robert Williams. Usually they have Robert Williams out here. And yeah, I would, if Al Horford ends up playing this game, by the way, yeah, just slam the over 32 fantasy points. But yeah, so I'm expecting Al Horford to sit this game, so that's a massive boost to Robert Williams at $5,800, one of the better plays on the slate. It is a very tough matchup against the Miami Heat, and then I'm expecting Dennis Schroeder to slide into the starting lineup. He would become a very good play as well, but we're gonna want to wait for confirmation on that. And then with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, we know these guys lead the league in minutes per game. We know the production is coming from those two guys on this team. But given the matchup, I'm really going elsewhere, especially since we're not getting any discounts on those guys. Move over to the Miami Heat. They are going to be without Victor Oladipo, Max Strus, KZ Okpala is questionable. Kyle Lowry, you know, his assist opportunities are on the rise. 14.2 potential assists per game. You know, he was coming along pretty slowly the first couple of games, but really acclimated to this team right now. Don't really like him at $7,700 over here on Draftkings. I think he's a much better play over on FanDuel. And then Tyler Hero, I mean, dude, $6,700. I was originally thinking that he probably wasn't going to close out these games. They would just continue to have Duncan Robinson out there. But he has played so well that he's playing mid-30s minutes in these games. He's closing over Duncan Robinson. And Duncan Robinson's playing like low 20s minutes right now. And they just signed him to like an $80 million contract not too long ago. So I like Tyler Hero quite a bit at $6,700. Leads the team with a 29.8% usage rating. Obviously, a lot of his minutes are staggered with these guys since he is coming off the bench, which is a positive thing. But at the end of the day, if he's getting mid-30s minutes, it doesn't really matter. At $6,700, he's probably my favorite play from the Miami Heat on DraftKings at least. And then Bam Adebayo at 8.1K, probably my second favorite play. Move over to the Houston Rockets versus the Phoenix Suns. Now, these next two games have pretty wide spreads, so be cautious of the blowouts here. 218 over under. Suns are currently 10.5 point home favorites. The Rockets are going to be without John Wall, Daniel House, Daniel Tice, and Eric Gordon are both questionable. So we've seen pretty big minutes from Christian Wood, Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Jayshawn Tate in these games that are competitive. You know, this is a 10.5 point spread. If Eric Gordon and Daniel Tice are ruled out, you know, I'm going to be on these guys even heavier, and then that would open up more minutes for guys like Alperen Sengun. You know, Alperen Sengun had the worst game of his short career so far this year. Last time out with no Daniel Tice when he grabbed the start. He played the most minutes but put up the lowest fantasy outcome. I think that's quite the anomaly. If Daniel Tice is ruled out and Sengun's getting the start again, I'm going to go straight back to the well with Alperen Sengun. You know, before last game, he was averaging 1.16 fantasy points per minute. And that was with a lot of his minutes being next to Christian Wood. So I'm not really concerned about the last game's outcome. I know the process was correct, but I will say at the end of games, if this game is competitive, more times than not, I think that they likely close with Christian Wood at the 5 and they throw KJ Martin in the starting lineup. KJ Martin has been playing very, very well for the Rockets, one of their better players recently. And he is only $3,600, but you know, this is totally dependent on Daniel Tice being ruled out, Eric Gordon too as well. Really like Kevin Porter Jr. though at $6,400. Better FanDuel play again. 24.1% usage rating, 27.3 assist percentage so far this year, but he has been very, very inefficient the last couple of games. He's been more efficient, and you know, he's been putting up near 40 fantasy points per game in those games. But really want to wait on the injury news in this game. much like we do in this Phoenix Suns team. Darius Saric has already been ruled out. DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Payne are both questionable. JaVale McGee started in place of DeAndre Ayton last game, ended up playing just 19 minutes. Frank Kaminsky ended up starting the second half of that game, played 29 minutes. Now, that could have been more of a matchup thing. I think that both of them are great plays. Obviously, I prefer whoever grabs the start here. This is the best matchup in the entire league against the Houston Rockets. I could definitely see JaVale McGee just going crazy against this Houston Rockets team if he grabs the start here. But obviously, this game starts 3 hours after lock, so maybe we get word, and that's all if DeAndre Ayton sits. And I think that DeAndre Ayton probably sits in this game. But that is pure speculation. Also, if Cam Payne is active, they brought his price down to $3,000. I think that he plays, around high teens, low 20s minutes in this game, and he's minimum price. So don't mind Cameron Payne if he ends up being active. And then Chris Paul at $8,500. He leads the league with 20.7 potential assists per game. We saw him absolutely pick apart the New Orleans Pelicans in his last game. I think we could see a similar situation here in the Houston Rockets. And don't count out the Houston Rockets. They just kept it pretty close with the Los Angeles Lakers 2 games in a row. The Suns might be a better team than the Lakers, to be honest, as of right now. But the Houston Rockets, can keep these games competitive, at least from what we've seen recently. Then we get the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Los Angeles Lakers at 215 over under. Lakers are currently 13.5-point favorites. Luguentz Dort and Gabriel Deck are questionable. Dort ended up missing last game. Jeremiah Robinson Earl ended up grabbing the start, played next to Derek Favors. But again, man, if this game is competitive, I know it's a wide spread at 13.5 points, but if it is competitive, Josh Giddey and Darius Bazley are entirely too cheap, and Lu Dort as well, if Lu Dort ends up being active. Because in competitive games, these guys are going to play into the 30s minutes. I think that they have the blowout risk priced into them, or baked into their prices. I still like Josh Giddey quite a bit. I mean, at $5,800, this guy he came along pretty slowly in the first couple of games, but he is handling a lot more than what we saw originally. And, the upside is through the roof for him at $5,800. If he plays 32 minutes, he destroys this price tag. If he plays 32 minutes, he would be worth like a mid to high 6K price tag. So I love Josh Giddey here. That is assuming this game is competitive, though. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a competitive game, $8,400 is a pretty solid play. On the Los Angeles Lakers side, we get Trevor Ariza, Kendrick Nunn, Talon Horton-Tucker. They are all out. LeBron James and Dwight Howard are questionable. LeBron James has been questionable pretty much all of these games, but he has ended up playing in all of them, all but one. So I like LeBron a good bit, but it's really Anthony Davis at $10,300 who I'm really targeting in on the Lakers. He's my preference of the 3 guys each and every night. Because I think his upside in minutes is a lot higher than everybody else's. And I'm expecting Dwight Howard to sit here. And even if Dwight Howard plays, I think that they probably continue to start Anthony Davis at the 5 and slide Avery Bradley into the starting lineup. And Anthony Davis is a far superior fantasy player when he's playing at center rather than the 4. And this matchup, it just could not get any better against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are incredibly small. They're probably going to throw out Derek Favors, who is an undersized center. He's used to playing power forward. So Anthony Davis should abuse this Thunder team while the game is close. So I love Anthony Davis today. And then potentially without Dwight Howard, we're going to continue to see Carmelo Anthony close these games out. He is more of a secondary play at $5,300. I don't mind Carmelo Anthony, but really just focusing in on Anthony Davis. But again, guys, I do stream an hour before lock every single day, so make sure to come back and join that stream, because we're probably going to get some crazy news throughout the day, and I will be there to break it down for you guys, as well as answer as many questions as I possibly can. But I appreciate you guys being here. Best of luck tonight, and until next time, peace.